I share with you a strong testimony that I have an absolute certainty that serves as a warning and awakening for my life and for yours. A sister named Rosanne will tell you about a great experience she had with God where she was caught up in spirit, and God showed her some people, who live only by appearance and will not rise on that great day, even though they often appear to us to be men and women of God. They are with their spiritual garments soiled in the pleasures of this world and sin. My brothers, it is a tremendous report. I ask you to watch this video until the end. She will report with fear and trembling. If we look at the events that have taken place in recent days, we can see that we are already experiencing the last days of the church on this earth. We are already getting closer to the return of Christ. My name is Rosanne Teixeira dos Santos. I'm married, I'm a mother of 3. I'm here to share with my brothers what the Lord has shown me through these days. I was at church, the service ended, I arrived at my house as usual. We always have dinner after we get home from church. I just had dinner there with my husband and my children that always read a word before I go to sleep. This day was different. I picked up my Bible, sat on my couch and started reading the word of the Lord. Something very strong was upon me when reading the word of the Lord. I felt something tremendous from the Lord. It wasn't like normal reading, for it was like God Himself was talking to me. I felt the grace and presence of the Lord. I looked around me and I realized that my husband and my daughters were no longer awake. It was already midnight. I continued reading there again when I reached the 3rd book of the Bible. Then I stopped for a bit. I thought everyone slept very early. When I took the clock it was 3:42 in the morning. I said, oh my God, this is it. At that time I was not sleepy, for the presence of the Lord remained strong. I put aside the Bible and dropped my knee to lie down and started to pray. For a few seconds I was there praying, and then I got up. In a matter of seconds I found myself standing on the edge of my bed, and when I looked, I was terrified because I saw myself in 2 places. I saw myself lying down and I saw myself standing, and I saw my husband also lying next to me. I said, but how can I be 2? How can I be there and here at the same time? 2 things passed through my head, because after life we are conscious. I said, either I died or I am being transported in the spirit. I started asking myself, if I died, what will my husband say? Tomorrow my children will ask about me. I was terrified and I thought about them, what my husband was going to say. At that moment I was also thinking, if I'm being transported in the spirit, where am I going and what am I going to see? I started to get a little desperate. I was in my room, but when I looked on my left side I saw a celestial character dressed in white and very beautiful. The shape of his body is like a man's body. He was wearing long sleeves that reached his hands, and on the side of his hands there were like little golden ribbons. I started to look at that character from the bottom up, but when my curiosity was to see the face of this being, I couldn't look because it shone a lot. That glory of his face was very intense, and I realized I was in front of an angel of the Lord. He has received order to take me out of here and show me things. I feared more. Still I thought I had died. I looked towards my children's room where they were sleeping, and I was afraid because I thought I may not come back and see them again. Without telling me anything, and in the blink of an eye, he took me away. He came towards me with the Bible in his hand and gave me. He said to me, you are living the last days here on earth. Run, preach, run, preach. He spoke to me with that voice so strong with authority that I felt urgency. I saw myself like in a vision running from one side to the other with the Bible in my hands, and I went out preaching the Lord's word. I felt surrounded by many people, but they no longer wanted to hear the sound word of the Lord. They no longer gave credit to the word of the Lord. It didn't matter anymore. That's where the angel opened another vision in front of me, and I saw a shepherdess with her hands raised to the heaven, and that woman, she screamed a lot and said, Jesus, get me out of here, because the people don't want sound doctrine anymore. They no longer want to hear from the Lord. She said, Jesus, take us out of this earth, because we are suffering great persecution and we are not able to handle it. At that moment when I lifted my hands and she spoke in this way to you, the angel appeared in front of me again for the second time, and he pointed his finger in my face, and I couldn't see his face because it was shining. The glory was too strong and his face shone strongly. I could only look at him from the neck down to the top. He said to me for the second time, you are living in the last days here on earth. At that moment I started to hear a clock noise, but it was very fast. The clock was not ticking at normal pace, it was ticking in accelerated rhythm, and I realized that the clock was being accelerated with speed. I kept hearing the sound of that clock. It was so fast that I started to fear, and I knew that I didn't have much time, and I thought about my family. What could I do to win my family, because Jesus was coming back? At that time I no longer saw the angel in front of me, but Jesus himself appeared in front of me with that glory, with that presence, with that love, because when manifest I look at the Lord and he seems to be gushing love. When you look at Jesus you want to run into his arms, because it is so good to look at Jesus. Your soul feels such great peace, and I saw Jesus in front of me and I wanted to run into the arms of Jesus. When I looked at him I felt that love from Jesus. I wanted to throw myself at Jesus' feet. I wanted to tell Jesus how much I loved him, because it's so good to look at him, for our soul feels such a great peace and such a great love. I wanted to hug him. At the same moment I knew I couldn't, because my sin separates me from him. What separates us from Jesus is our sin, for when I looked at him I felt that love, but at the same moment I saw how holy he is. Indeed, Jesus is so holy that my sin would not allow me to approach him. It was like my sin stopped me. Jesus did not ignore me, and even though my body was more or less a distance away, Jesus looking at me, he said with a strong voice of thunder, "Come with." Everyone obey the voice of thunder. He said, "Come with me." I was already following Jesus, but in my thoughts I thought, where are we going? What am I gonna see? I'm being snatched, or am I dead? And I feared, when I join the Lord in the blink of an eye, I was already in another place, even if I don't know how we got there. And I saw a large crowd of people, as if they were inside a big temple. I didn't see the church or the temple, I just saw the crowd of people, all kind and all walks of life. I saw women in pants, in shorts, in spaghetti tops. I saw men in shorts, in a fitted shirt. I saw a woman with high heels. I saw a woman who took her off her fancier. I saw a woman who wore makeup. I saw a woman who cut her hair. There were some who had earrings on their little ears, on their arms. Others had those necklaces on their noses and neck. And Jesus told me, look, and I looked again. He said, "My daughter, they are saying they are adoring me. They are saying I am among them, but their adoration is nothing. It is not going through the ceiling." The Lord said to me 3 times, "I am holy and I haven't changed. My people are corrupting themselves before me." When I looked at that crowd and I saw the paralytics standing up, I saw people receiving healing, prosperity. They prayed and spoke in tongues. And I said, "Lord, you cannot be absent from these people. If the miracle is happening, the paralytic gets up and people are receiving healing and speaking in tongue and receiving renewal." And Jesus looked at me and said, "My daughter, if even a wicked person would ask something in my name, I will do it and honor my word." My daughter's salvation will not be by works, it will not be by miracle. Many will say, "Lord, in your name I healed, Lord, in your name I did big things," but they won't get in my kingdom. Because salvation is through holiness, it is through holiness. I don't change, but they became corrupted before me. At that time I knew I was not worthy even to hug Jesus, yet he hadn't told me anything, neither where I was going, but I knew, for my own conscience spoke to me. Jesus ordered me to look again at that crowd. I saw great men that the Lord used in this land of Brazil, and he said, "Look at them," and I gave them my flock. I exalted their name, but their life was just a bait to tie the people. They are diverting my people from coming to me. Jesus started to tell me, "My daughter, they have exchanged the message of salvation for the message of blessing and prosperity. They are not so much preparing people to go to heaven, they are attracting crowds with the gift of healing and the miracle, but are not leading them to the right path that leads to heaven. They fear to discipline and correct people for fear that they will leave. They are worried about the kingdom they are building here on earth, but the man who builds his kingdom here on earth is a foolish man and poor in spirit." And I looked, and Jesus turned to me and said, "So my daughter, you make sure you never want to build your kingdom here in the land. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven." The Lord said, "Don't I care about the birds, the plant? I'll take care of you and your need when you put my work first." I was worried because I often stopped doing the work of the Lord and winning soul to run after goods and materials, things to build my kingdom here on earth. I am often preoccupied a lot about my need and cares. When Jesus was rebuking these people, this also applied to me. I often did my best for the Lord, but I tried so hard running after material goods here in this world, and I didn't have the courage to do even a third of that for Him. I knew once again I was not worthy of hugging Jesus. When He showed me the proeminent men of God, I saw that on their hands was blood, and I was worried to see blood on their hand. Jesus said to me, I had given them notoriety and had raised them up in this land of Brazil, but they live like a bait that attract and betray the people I sent them by diverting them away from me. They are taking people out of the way, yet they were supposed to take them to heaven. I am going to require the blood of those innocent. Then Jesus took me to another place. I looked and saw a sister with a long robe. Her hair was well without touching scissors. There was no vanity. She seemed to maintain a life of holiness of her body. I thought that Jesus wanted to tell me what it was like for a person to walk in holiness before Him and have a life of holiness at the altar. When I thought that way, He said to me, you deceived yourself. He ordered the woman to open her mouth, and when she did, her tongue fell out, for it became long and big. I was scared and said, why, Lord? He looked at me and He said, so, my daughter, it is not only clothes that show that you walk in holiness. Holiness has to come from inside and from the heart. This daughter of mine spent her time gossiping about people's shortfall, mistake and failure, for in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. If one of our part and organ cause you to sin, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. This daughter cared more about life of others than with her life.